What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down why tomorrow is going to be a very important day, as we have the PCE data report coming out, which will affect the market big time, not to mention more news about Tesla and the markets. But before I break any doubles information, before I talk about what the data may cause for the markets going into tomorrow, and what's going to likely happen to Tesla stock, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Weeble and deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon in just about 3 days from now. Anyways, for Tesla, as you guys can see, we look very, very bullish on the 4-hour time frame, getting a nice breakout from here, continuing to break out. And I wanted to also mention that we have this nice inverse head and shoulders that's continuing to play out. So Tesla's looking more bullish from a technical standpoint. But the question is, will we continue to push like this? We're seeing a lot of buyers defending the QQQ, not to mention SPY and Tesla. But will they continue tomorrow? I want to give you guys some insights about that. But tomorrow is going to be heavily dictated by some data that's coming out. Please note that tomorrow is going to be Friday, June 28th, 2024. And the reason why this is important is because 1 hour before the market ends up opening at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the PCE data report coming out. Now, PCE is known for being very important for the Fed. The Fed likes to prioritize PCE over CPI, and then they use this data for research and a bunch of different things. So for PCE, just know that core PCE is expected to be around 0.1%. Okay, that's a bit of a decrease compared to before. We're also expecting PCE on the core side for year over year to be around 2.6 to 2.7%. That's another decrease compared to before. And then for all items PCE, we have it right over here. Month over month is expected to be 0 to 0.1%. That's a big decrease compared to what we saw before. And then for PCE for all items year over year, we're expecting 2.6 percent. That's once again a big decrease. So that's going to be for the data for May. That's what we're expecting thus far. Later on during the day, we also have the Chicago PMI report at 9:45 a.m. and then the Michigan Consumer Sentiment data around 10 a.m., which is kind of minor. Might cause some volatility, but nothing too crazy. And then we're going to end the day with Bowman giving a bit of a speech. But the main piece of data will be PCE. What is this going to likely cause? The market's going to gap up or gap down depending on this data. We actually have some insights to go over. So just know that PCE is known for being heavily correlated with that of CPI. There's a high correlation between these two data metrics, and CPI already came out, so this can give us more insights. So CPI is another well-known inflationary measure, and as you guys can see when we look at the data, we got a decent CPI the last time it came out for the month of May already. This was at 0% on the month-over-month change, and then for the overall time frame, you guys could see relative to what we saw the previous year, we're continuing to see decreases for CPI. The data looks good on paper. This does not guarantee anything, at least in terms of like me, taking all the data with 100% honesty and believing everything. I just want to say that we have to go based off the data that we are seeing because this is what ends up affecting the markets. So CPI has been decent. It's been on a bit of a downtrend for the last couple of months, and everything was aligned with expectations the last time it came out. Because of that, there's a high probability that we're going to see PCE do the same thing, and that's why I favor that we're most likely going to get a decent PCE report. And I think that this could be more positive for the markets. So I can't promise that. I don't know with 100% certainty since I don't really have, any crystal balls, or I don't really have any fortune telling abilities or anything like that. I don't know for sure what's going to happen, but I favor that the data is going to be decent because CPI was decent and the Fed is going to be looking at the data that way. So as a result of that, this might lead to a bit of a squeeze. If the market does end up gapping up, we could see a miniature squeeze as we have over 1.85 million puts expiring, and we have over 460,000 calls expiring with the 541 max pain. This is once again favoring that there's so many shorts out there. So the market may continue to push if we get some decent data from PCE, decent data meaning that the inflationary data is below expectations. So I'll be waiting to see if that ends up being the case. Also, another couple of things before I break down the charts. Nike just announced its earnings, and things are not looking that great for them because of the fact that even though they beat on EPS with $1.01 adjusted, their revenue was a miss at $12.61 billion, and they also had to cut their guidance for 2025 amidst Chinese weakness in sales. And that's not the best of news, at least for them. So that's why the share price is down over 11.9% right now. As far as Tesla goes, Tesla has released some new notes, at least for the next updates. And you guys can see that so far, this is going to allow the Teslas to now park and parallel park in a designated space. They're also allowed to drive at a low speed and display potential parking spaces, which is pretty useful. There's also going to be a lot of talk about how this will be a lot more useful for people who have trouble with parking and tight spaces and such. So, very, very useful. There's also going to be a lot of changes coming out where the door can open halfway when you approach your vehicle and the automatic doors are enabled. So, that can be very useful too. That's an automatic function. It doesn't have to be guaranteed. Also, headlights now adapt to curves and roads ahead for greater visibility in low light. That's very useful. And we're seeing a lot of really, really cool updates coming out. There's also been some news about Tesla right over here as how Tesla's losing its EV quality edge as repair problems continue. Well, the thing is, this survey just represents a very, very tiny percentage of Tesla owners, as a large percentage of them are very happy with what Teslas are able to do and their very, very cool features. But despite that, the 2024 US Initial Quality Survey has found that right now the positive reports for Tesla are actually kind of like decreasing just a little bit because of more problems that are being reported compared to before. That is something that is worth noting. It is true, and I think that Tesla will do its best to kind of like take care of these, but it's not the end of the world. It's not like Teslas have the worst ratings ever. It's just a slight decrease. But I still think that demand for Teslas is high despite this, so it's not really affecting my view. I still think Teslas have good amounts of buyers, and once interest rates really decrease, things will improve at least from that end. Volume is at 72.6 million, a little bit below what we saw from yesterday, but it's still above average. And then also, the short volume is decreasing just a little bit. And then simultaneously, there's also some changes right over here as we're starting to see a Stifle give Tesla a buy rating, not to mention the price price ratio kind of going up right here as Tesla's building some strength. So when it comes to seasonality, Fridays tend to be green about 49% of the time. We tend to see more volatility around noon and also at around 3 o'clock p.m. And then also around the July period. Historically, Tesla's not as strong during that period, but we're actually off to a very good start for July. So this will depend a lot on deliveries coming out for early July. That's going to be the big catalyst. So just know that tomorrow is going to be the last day of June for day trading, the last trading day of the month and the quarter. And then once we open again, going into next week on Monday, we're going to be starting July. So historically, this data tells us that 80% of the time we're green in June. And as you guys can see, June has been a strong month for Tesla. We've run quite a bit relative to where we were before. So that's a good sign, at least for Tesla. With that being said, now let's just focus on the technicals. Let's just focus on the charts and break down how things are looking. What do I think about tomorrow for Tesla? Well, honestly, guys, do not forget that we have the PCE data report, so we can't really guarantee anything, at least in terms of technicals. Technicals are just one factor with noting. They're not entirely sufficient on a day like PCE, but I can tell you what they're suggesting. Right now, Tesla looks very bullish. It looks like it wants to be pushing into the 200s, looking at this nice inverse head and shoulders. When I zoom in and look at the 30 minutes time frame, you guys can also see Tesla's on a very, very nice looking uptrend. When I bring back these levels, you guys can see it. It's continuing to push very, very nicely. So we are pushing very, very strongly. We have a nice uptrend and also a bullish wedge developing. This is favoring that Tesla might try to push up even higher going into tomorrow into the 200s. So technicals do favor bullish looking patterns. If we hold above 196.5 tomorrow, look for 200. If we lose that, we'll be looking for 194 and then 191.69. Overall, the chart looks more bullish, especially on the 4-hour. When you zoom out of the 4-hour a bit, you guys can also see 194, the support below this will be the breakout area to be tested. So we are still holding well above 194, and the trend is still very bullish on Tesla as we're looking like we want to push higher. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with PCE data. The data I'm looking at suggests the data is going to be good, looking at how CPI looks and other factors. So there's a good chance PCE will be decent tomorrow, and the odds favor more upside. But if you want to be bearish on Tesla, you want to see it lose 194 then 191. As of right now, it's looking very unlikely, and the odds favor upside from a technical standpoint, but we will see what PCE data brings us. For SPY, we're also looking more bullish because the 4-hour is about to get a bullish cross in the PPO. We're holding support very nicely, and when you kind of zoom in like this, let me just show you this pattern before I break down some levels. We have a nice inverse head and shoulders developing on the 30 minutes time frame just like this. So you guys can quite clearly see this. We have a nice left shoulder here. We have a head and then a right shoulder forming. This is looking a lot more bullish to me, and I'm very excited about this. Now, on the 4-hour, I just wanted to mention that the 4-hour is also looking more bullish as we're nearing a bullish cross in the PPO. And when I break down the levels, you could see that 547 is the key resistance. If we break this, we'll be looking at 549 and eventually new all-time highs, in my opinion, if we break past 547. If you reject here and we get a hot PCE, we're going to be looking for a move back down to 544, then 543. If that breaks, we'll be dipping all the way down to 537. What do I think is more likely? Looking at the inverse head and shoulders, the buyers that are stepping in, and the data that suggests that PCE is more likely to be decent, I would say that the odds do favor upside a bit more. The odds favor that PCE will be okay, and we might see more upside. However, I can't make that promise until we see the data, so we'll just have to wait and see. For Nvidia, Nvidia is kind of stuck in the middle right now. We have a support around 122 and resistance around 126. If we break past 126, this would favor upside for 130. And if we lose 122, look for a dip all the way down to 120, if not 115. The chart looks like it wants to rebound a bit, but there's no guarantee yet. We have to wait and see what happens with data. So I'm in the middle with Nvidia. It's just waiting for data. So we'll see how things go. We're waiting to see if we could break 126 tomorrow to turn bullish. We're just going to be very patient. For Bitcoin had this low right here around this 58,000 area. We kind of bounced to 20 EMA, rejected a bit. Now we're trying to push higher. Despite the bearish trend that Bitcoin has been on, making lower highs and lower lows, there is some life in Bitcoin right now as it's trying to kind of rebound a bit. So if we manage to break out, I'll be watching 62,500 tomorrow. If that breaks, we're going to be looking for 64,000. If we end up rejecting and losing support right here around 60,500, I'll be looking for a dip all the way down towards 59,000. Looking at this nice little bounce that's potentially forming on Bitcoin, I would say the odds favor upside for at least 62,500 and eventually 64,000. So I'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case. But overall, Bitcoin is gaining some momentum, and there's a chance it might try to rebound. For the QQQ, there's a very, very nice looking inverse head and shoulders like structure that's developing right here. If we start pushing higher, look for 484. If that breaks, we'll be pushing all the way up to the new all-time high. If we turn bearish, you want to see it lose 479. If that breaks, we'll be dipping to 476. This chart looks more bullish from the 4-hour standpoint, and also because of the fact that buyers are defending it, and because of the fact that PCE will most likely be decent tomorrow, looking at the CPI data. So the odds favor a pump with the inverse head and shoulders, a bullish pattern, and buyers stepping in to push this all the way up towards at least 484. If that breaks, we'll go even higher. So this looks more bullish alongside Aapl. Apple's also trying to break out very nicely right here. If we break past 216, I'll be looking for 220 plus. If we lose support at 212, we'll be dipping all the way down to 210. This looks like it has a nice accumulation. The odds favor the upside as a stronger possibility, but we will see if the PCE data report leads to that or not. So this is favoring the upside a bit more. Now, for Palantir and the others, and now I'm just going to transition to talking about other stocks out there. Palantir had a head and shoulders trap for a lot of retail. People started to short this, but I told you all to watch for confirmation if you want to turn bearish or not. And overall, we actually held up very nicely. So this chart is favoring more upside. It looks like it wants to be hitting 26 plus. That looks more probable for tomorrow. If we lose 24 flats, we'll be looking for 22.9. That's the more bearish case, but the odds favor the bullish case for 26 plus. For Neo, the 4 hours showing a little bit of weakness. If we end up losing support over here around this, 4.3 area, we could be dipping all the way down towards 4.3. I'm sorry, if we lose 4.3, we'll be dipping down to 4.25. Excuse me, guys. But there is a chance we're going to try to rebound depending on the PCE data report. So look for a little dip to 4.3 and see if we get a bounce from there. That's going to be very important. For Supermicro, we had a head and shoulders trap again. Notice how these head and shoulders are not really playing out. They're being used as traps for a lot of retail who are starting to short the markets based off of them. So, in my opinion, this looks more bullish. You got a nice breakout. If we break past 900, I'm going to be looking for 920. If we reject off 900, we're going to be looking for rejection back down to 860. This looks like it wants to go all the way up to about 920, so I'll be watching for that. For Rivian is trying to pop just a bit. We are slowing down in terms of momentum. If we end up losing supports and we start dipping back down, I'll be looking for a test of 13.33, then eventually 12.2. And if we turn bullish, you want to be looking for a push back up to 16. This looks to me like it wants to be pushing up to 15 plus and eventually 16. That looks a bit more probable. SoFi has a nice inverse head and shoulders. If we break past 6.57, I'll be looking for a push all the way up towards 6.72. That looks more probable to me. With the inverse head and shoulders forming here, it looks like it favors upside. But just to be safe, we will see if that ends up being the case or not. It depends on the PCE report, of course. If we start pushing higher on the IWM Russell 2000, if 202 breaks, we'll be looking for a pump all the way up towards 205 tomorrow. And if we end up turning bearish, you want to see it lose 201. If 201 breaks, we're going to be dipping all the way back down to 198. There was a head and shoulders trap that ended up failing, so this favors upside. Technically speaking, it looks like it wants to be pushing for 205. So we'll see if that ends up being the case or not. AMD It's been on a bit of a downtrend off this nice little flag that's forming, but if we have to break past 162 to turn bullish to push for 166, if we end up rejecting off 160, we'll be looking for a dip. This looks more bullish, so I think that 162 plus is looking more probable to me. For ARM is looking a bit more bullish, trying to bounce right here. If we break past 169, I'll be looking for basically 173.5. If we end up losing support at 161, we'll be dipping back down towards 155. This to me favors upside, so upside looks more probable at least for ARM. So it's looking more bullish, technically speaking. So we'll see if the data ends up supporting this move or not. If Coinbase turns bearish, you want to see it lose 220 and then start dipping back down to 215. If we're bullish, you want to see it break past 225. If that's the case, 230 is coming. We have a nice double bottom, so the odds favor 230, so that's looking a little bit more probable to me. For Amazon, we're on a very, very nice looking uptrend right here. This favors 200. That's looking much more probable as there's no sign of weakness on the chart. So it's favoring the upside for 200 plus to be tested. If we get a hot PCE though, watch for 196, not 216, 196. So I'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case, but it looks more bullish. Meta looks more bullish. You'll be looking for 522.5, if not higher levels. If we turn bearish, you want to see it break down and actually retest 515, but it's looking like it wants to continue to go. For Microsoft, we're on a very, very strong looking uptrend above our 20 EMA. We've been holding that for a couple of weeks. So the odds favor that this is going to continue to hold up. And we may continue to push all the way back up towards 456. So that's looking more bullish to me. For Google's breaking out very nicely. If we continue to push, we'll be looking for 188 and eventually 190. This is looking more bullish, so I think the odds favor the upside as a stronger possibility. So I favor upside for Google in my personal opinion. And I think it may get closer to 190. It also depends on PCE, so we'll just have to wait and see. I'm starting to like this setup on GameStop because we have a nice inverse head and shoulders and imbalance to fill. So if we break or close above 25.57, I think GameStop may get a bounce towards 28. And if we reject and end up losing 24, I'll be looking for a dip to 22. This chart looks bullish with a nice inverse head and shoulders. So look for this push in this imbalance fill. That's looking more probable to me. For AMC, we're looking a little bit more bullish. If we continue to break it, I'll be looking for a test of 5 and eventually higher levels. So this looks stronger to me with a nice inverse head and shoulders, and the odds favor 5 plus as a stronger possibility. For DJT, we pushed all the way up towards 40.78 as we rejected right here. If we lose 35.65, we'll be dipping all the way down to this imbalance towards 30. And if we hold 35, we'll be looking for a bounce back up to 40. So watch for a test of 35. We have a big debate going on today, so we'll see if that causes anything. It is looking like it's going to dip a little bit, but we'll see. I'm not 100% sure. It depends on the debate and what reaction we get, so I'll wait for that. The VIX has a gap to fill down here. It's looking a little bit more bearish as that's favoring upside for the markets. So that's looking like it favors the upside. The 10-year may dip a little bit, which could favor upside for the markets as well. And the dollar has a triple, if not quadruple bearish divergence developing as we approach 106. So the dollar might get a rejection. The market may continue to push. This could be a trap though, so we'll see. But like I said before, the dollar has some tight resistance at 106, and we will just have to wait and see what the reaction is. So overall, guys, the market is looking more bullish, technically speaking. Tesla has a nice inverse head and shoulders. We're approaching our very important deliveries report. Tesla is looking more and more bullish by the days. It's favoring upside for 200, so it might go a little bit higher. So watch that 200 resistance. SPY is in a very, very similar place, looking more bullish, trying to break out towards 547. If we break that, we'll be looking for more upside as well. So I don't know for sure if that's going to happen. We will just have to wait and see what happens with all this data coming out for tomorrow. So we'll see how things go, and we'll be very, very patient in the process when it comes to all this data that's going to be released. So with that being said, I will see you guys tomorrow. We'll be talking about the PCE data report. I'll talk about this in the morning tomorrow. So get ready. I can't wait to see how the data ends up looking. It's going to be very important, at least for the markets, and it's going to cause some high volatility. I'll be back tomorrow to talk about it. Do what you have to do, guys, and I will most definitely see you guys in the next one for tomorrow. Tesla in the markets to the moon because the long term is still incredibly bright. Even the short term is looking pretty bullish for Tesla with all this talk about deliveries and all this AI talk, which is looking pretty good. And I can't wait to see what else is announced during some very important events. So I'm very excited for Tesla. Can't wait to see how we end up reacting to PCE. Keep in mind the data for CPI was good, so that does favor a decent PCE, which could pump the markets. But I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know for sure. Make sure you're open-minded for both the bearish and bullish cases I kind of showed you guys. So be open-minded for anything, and just know that the odds do favor upside looking at charts, at least for now. All right. So have a great evening, have a great night, and a great rest of the day for everyone out there. I'll be back tomorrow, an hour before the market opens, to record another video and break down the data. Until then, take care and peace out.